who may have started at the beginning of a session. So I really wish you every success in this very important function that you are performing, and we welcome you warmly and wholeheartedly. Congratulations once again, and welcome. Senator Watson.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning to my fellow senators. I'm pleased to be able to utter those words. Mr. President, we, as you have already acknowledged, we have done good work together in the past. And I too am delighted to be able to work with you. We've done work that has stood the test of time in telecommunications reform. And I'm quite pleased to be in this chamber with you and to be able to work with you again. I also want to thank my fellow senators for the warm welcome. Long may that warmth continue. And even if it doesn't, I thank you today. And I look forward to working with you. I'm accustomed to that. And I can bear it, trust me. Now, I look forward to working with you, of course. I know many of you. I have worked with some of you, either working together or working in opposition to each other, ironically. I have known some of you for quite a long time, and I'm pleased to be able to work with you, collaborate where that is possible, as you are willing to, but also to vigorously debate against you. I look forward to being able to contribute in that way. Mr. President, if you will permit me, I do have some other words that I'd like to say. I want to reflect, because in offering service to the people of Barbados, I often reflect on a lady I don't believe we can call names, but she is my grandmother. Born in 1970.
Free on such a wonderful occasion and for such a provident purpose.
Thank you so much. Miss Gwendolyn Jones, deceased, may she rest in peace. Born in 1917 to very humble circumstances, left school before the age of 16, able to vote only in her 30s. Not only, but from that time. And representing a generation of people that brought us to change, that allow us to be here. And she drives my service because she was a woman that introduced me to politics, standing at political meetings at the grand old age of 5, 6, 7 years old, falling asleep on my feet, all parties, so that we could understand what it meant to be citizens of Barbados. And that has grounded my interest in the political, economic, and social affairs of this country. She was not a woman who reached a high level of education, but she most certainly was an intelligent, capable, and self-educated person. I also must acknowledge my father, Mr. Grantley Watson, recently deceased. May he rest in peace. But I had cause to reflect on what he would say to me today. First, I'm certain that he would be proud. Secondly, I'm certain that he would support me, even if he disagreed. But I am certain also that he would say a few words to me that would reflect his own service that exceeded 50 years to the people of Barbados and the people of the Caribbean. He would tell me to be disciplined, to be diligent, to be focused, to be serious, to give that service, and also to give respect to the people that I work with and the people that I am serving. I am not known for my obedience, but on this occasion, I will. Perhaps in my last act of obedience to him, I will be obedient in the instructions that I think he would have given to me. I must acknowledge my mother, my steadfast supporter, who, during her period of mourning, has also stepped out to support me in this new aspect of my service to the people of Barbados. And I acknowledge her because she is very important to me as my constant supporter. I will acknowledge my partner and my children. I will acknowledge my siblings. And I also must acknowledge my friends because they hold me up. We have different political perspectives, but we always support each other in in endeavors of this nature. But finally, I must say to the people of Barbados, who for the last 2 years have met me about the place in the supermarket, etc., and have said thank you. And as of yesterday, they have said thank you in various ways, in person, by phone, by social media. Obviously, that's the mechanism that we're using very much to communicate these days, and long may it be so. And I appreciate their support because it matters. It matters because it bolsters one's confidence and one's commitment and assures one that you are doing the right thing in providing this service to the people of Barbados. And I want to say to my colleagues that you can expect me to be vigorous. You can expect me to be committed to this work. For me, as an observer outside of this chamber, and a citizen, an ordinary citizen, but one that has paid attention, my observation is that in the last 5 years, the Senate has become the vanguard of democracy in Barbados, given the severe imbalance, or no balance whatsoever, in the other chamber. And I think that is how Barbadians feel, that senators have a special responsibility at this time in our history to represent the people of Barbados, to stand in the breach. I have felt that myself. And I think you, members of the Senate, have received special attention. Your work has received special attention as a result of that renewed interest and the import of the work of the Senate. That is very important to me, all the more so now that I have joined you. And it is my intention to satisfy the interests of the people of Barbados. Obviously, we will sit here, we will debate legislation that embodies the policies of the government. And we lawyers know that in drafting legislation, there are certain key tenets, constitutionality being the primary one, clarity, and a consideration of the impact of the people who are addressed in the legislation that is proposed. I will apply those tenets and the others that I know as a matter of my technical knowledge, but I also am intent on ensuring that Barbadians' interests are brought to bear, whether that is as individuals or as sectors of our society or economy that will be affected by the matters that are placed before this chamber. Mr. President, my father, many people have said to me, when you are called to duty, you must say yes. I do not always say yes. I have said yes. And in saying yes, I intend to perform to the fullness of my capability. Whatever that may mean, I want my colleagues here to be assured that I am ready, most certainly willing, absolutely able. And I look forward to engage and to assure that democracy, constitutionality, and the protection of the people of Barbados are brought to bear in this chamber and are observed by our government. Mr. President, those are my words. I thank you for your indulgence. I'm obliged to you.
Thank you very much, Senator Watson. Senator Walters.
Thank you, Mr. President, and a very good morning to my fellow senators. Serving your country and your fellow citizens in any capacity is an honor and an opportunity that cannot and should not be taken for granted. Yesterday was a humbling experience for me, having been sworn in and taken the oath to represent the people of this country. I am thankful for the confidence that has been placed in me to represent the interests of the people of Barbados from this honorable chamber. Mr. President, I have to believe that my presence here is as a result of my hard work, my dedication, and my commitment to the people of Barbados. You said that my name precedes me. And I am truly, I am very passionate about everything that I do. There's nothing that I saw in my upbringing that was given to my family. I saw my mother working very hard to support her 4 children. I have done the same, and I will continue to put my best foot forward on behalf of the people of this country. Growing up, there was a saying, you never know who is watching you. And as a young boy, I took that for not to behave bad, not to get in trouble, in fear of what would happen when I get home. And you know what would happen when I get home, Mr. President. But as I grew older, especially professionally, I realized that that statement is not all about negative, but it is about how you can be positive and how you can accelerate by doing good. Hence, my presence here today, Mr. President. I also, Mr. President, would like to thank all those who have been in any capacity with me during this journey, a journey that started back in 2018 of August, when I decided to join a political party that was defeated at the polls and to bring a level of balance to the political landscape in Barbados. I remember it clearly, Mr. President, going to those early meetings after defeat, a new member, having to hear the members in that meeting call for the former candidate. But Mr. Speaker, I was adamant that I would not let it get me down. I was adamant also that I would not show my worth by talking, but show my worth by doing. And that I set out on a journey to represent the people of St. Michael Northwest, of which I continue to intend to do so. Mr. President, I am young. Will I make mistakes? It is very likely I will. Will I live up to the expectations of all? It is very unlikely I will do so. But will I give of my best? I say to Barbadians, I will give of my best. I am here to learn and to grow, to be better able to serve the interests of the people of Barbados in years to come. The majority of our great politicians on both sides of the divide debated in this Senate. Even you, sir, right here is where you started, and you are now head of this hallowed chamber. Mr. President, I promise to be respectful to this chamber and to you and to my fellow senators, and of course, I expect to be the recipient of that same respect. I am here to serve the best interests and to be a voice for the people of Barbados. And with those few words, Mr. President, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Walters.
Announcements by Your Honor.
Minutes of our meeting held on Wednesday, February the 7th, 2024, for deferral. Senator Cummings.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, February 7, 2024, be deferred at this time.
The question is that the minutes of our meeting held on Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, be deferred. Will all honorable senators in favor please say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Methinks the ayes have it. Those minutes are accordingly deferred. Further announcements, I have excuses for absence from Senator Rogers, who is overseas on assignment, and indications of late arrival from Senator Kevin Boyce, who is at court.
presentation of petitions, presentation of papers.
Senator Cummings.
Mr. President, I am commanded to lay the instrument, as I'm going to outline it, Convention 189, Domestic Workers 2011, and Recommendation R201, Domestic Workers 2011, number 2001.
Reports from select committees. Questions to ministers. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the Senate on matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers or parliamentary secretaries. Personal explanations. Motions relating to the business or sitting of the Senate and moved by a minister. Introduction of bills.
Senator Cummings.
Mr. President, I beg to move the introduction and the first reading of the following bill, the Labor Clauses Concessions Bill 2024. I beg to move that this bill now be read a first time.
The question is that the Labor Clauses Concessions Bill 2024 be read a first time. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. Public business is now the order of the day.
Order number one, sir. In the name of the Honourable Leader of the Senate, to move the second reading of the Cybercrimes Bill 2024.
Senator Cummings.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is my pleasure and my privilege, first of all, to express the appreciation on behalf of the government side to the honorable former senators who once shared this chamber with us. I will take the opportunity to do publicly that which I have already done with them both privately. I have already, on behalf of the government side, sent them both private notes, thanking them for their service. There is a way at times where even when you disagree, you don't have to be disagreeable. There are times when, even when we're not on the same side, we don't have to be offensive. There are times when, even though you argue, you don't have to be argumentative and you don't have to be bombastic. And so it is on those occasions, Mr. President, that I was very appreciative of the time that I spent, even with those members who offered robust commentary on matters relating to government policy. And I want to call them by name, Dr. Christina Hines, in the first instance. And as I said to her this morning, it is my expectation that she will continue to use her considerable platform of the radio to represent and to continue her advocacy. And I am sure that in any instance, and I have given her that assurance, where she wishes to have clarity, background context on any matter relating to government policy for which I am responsible, I remain, as I have always been, amenable and available to answering those questions. Dr. Charleston Brathwaite, he served in this chamber with distinction. He was always a man of class. He conducted himself with grace at all times, in word and in deed. And he spoke on more than one occasion, perhaps 10 out of 10 times. He loaned Barbados his considerable voice on matters relating to agriculture. And I wish to commend him for that. And I also shared with him this morning that I expect that while his voice will not be heard from this chamber, that his contribution will continue to be recognized by a grateful nation. And I wish to recognize them both for their service here in the Honorable the Senate. In the same breath, Mr. President, I wish to welcome our new members of the Senate. We have Ms. Tricia Watson, who has just spoken, and Mr. Ryan Walters, and you have given an introduction to them both. We talked about humility in both speeches, and I wish to take the opportunity to share that in most instances, and our Prime Minister says this very often, there are very few of us who did not come from working class origins. There are very few of us who did not come from either single families or families who worked their way, and we now constitute a professional class of persons who stand in chambers such as this, having all been asked and invited to serve and accepted that sacred call to serve a nation. I too remember what it felt like to be asked to serve. I recall being a young Foreign Service officer myself and being asked to serve abroad and what it felt like on that occasion. I recall being invited into government and to join the Senate and what it felt like to hear the national anthem and to hear this little girl from St. George being invited to serve in the nation and then being invited to join the nation's cabinet. So I think that your sentiments are not unique at all, but they certainly resonate with every member sitting around. Certainly I can speak for on behalf of the government side, but I believe even beyond the government side, they represent all of us in this honorable chamber. And I assure you that the government side will continue to be robust in our engagement. We will continue to be equally vigorous in our defense of government policy. We will continue to advocate on behalf of the people who elected us and voted for us. We will continue to advocate on behalf of those who are the most vulnerable, and that this administration will continue to ensure that we are in a position at all times to demonstrate why the people of Barbados reposed their confidence in us on more than one occasion, but in more recent times, not once, but twice in comprehensive manner. I think also on behalf of the government side, I think it is a welcome change as well to have declared opposition in our midst, and we are quite happy to have opposition by name in the Honorable the Senate. Mr. President, I rise, however, to speak specifically on the bill that is listed at order number 1. Over the last several weeks, the nation has had several comments, several inputs, several recommendations being made on this particular matter. It is the cybercrime bill and the related matter, which in the other place was treated to as a cognate debate. The second matter, Mr. President, will be the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill. It is the judgment of this government, as is the case with this government on multiple matters before, because we represent the people. The people voted for a government who consulted and who engaged. The people voted for a government who, even after being elected, continued to engage. The people voted for a government who continued to ensure that their voices were heard and that they listened to recommendations, and in instances where the people felt that we needed to go in a different direction than what was originally proposed. This is a government that, notwithstanding critique, that it was a flip-flop government, that you then listened to people, but then you didn't take action on what people recommended. And so on that basis, Mr. President, I rise to read a resolution into the record of the Honorable the Senate and to move this resolution. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas the Cybercrime Bill 2024 and the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill 2024 have been read a first time in the Senate, and whereas it is in the public interest that a fuller discourse on the bill be undertaken, be it resolved that subject to the concurrence of the Honorable the House of Assembly, that the Cybercrime Bill 2024 and the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill 2024 be referred to the Joint Select Standing Committee on Governance and Policy Matters, and be it further resolved that the committee be empowered to consider the merits and principles of the bill and report 3 months from reference. This is the resolution which is before the Honorable the Senate, Mr. President, and I wish to beg that this resolution be considered favorably by the honorable members who sit herein.
Are the speakers on this resolution before the question is put? There being none. The question is that this resolution seeks to trigger the committee process for full public consideration of this bill by way of the Joint Select Committee, Standing Committee on Governance and Policy Matters, do now pass. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. The things the ayes have it, this resolution is therefore now passed. Senator Cummings.
Mr. President, in the same vein, I rise also to advise that while in our last sitting, last Wednesday, there were a number of items on our order paper, and that there are a number of matters which I believe we are all prepared to debate. 24 hours in politics is a long time. And we learned that repeatedly, but we certainly learned it over the last week. And on that basis, with the accession, with the membership now of the Senate changing, and having 2 new members representing the new leader of the opposition joining, it is the judgment of the government as well that we would, in fairness to our new members of the Senate, give them an opportunity to be fully prepared to debate on all matters being dealt with on the order paper, and on that basis, that the Senate would defer further consideration on the matters on the order paper today, and that the Senate at this time would then be adjourned until next Wednesday, which is Wednesday, the 21st of February, for consideration of the order paper, when we expect to have a vigorous and a robust debate on the matters on the order paper.
The question is that the Honorable the Senate be now adjourned until Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 at 11 a.m. Senator Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Really just want to speak very briefly in 2 matters. First of all, to welcome our new colleagues. It is going to be interesting, I think, now that we do have, and I adopt the language of the Honorable Leader of the Senate, declared opposition, because for some time following the last 2 elections, I think that there has been some concern that there should be within the Parliament declared opposition and voices that do represent the opposition, and that it adds to our democracy that 2 young and vigorous debaters will now be joining us. It makes for very interesting days ahead, and I'm sure that the students and observers of politics are watching with keen interest. I think to our new senators, you will find that this is a chamber where there is good, strong intellectual argument. We do not always agree, but we have all forged relationships because we understand that these varying perspectives are put in the broader interest of the people of Barbados, and that there cannot only be one view. All views must contend, if I may quote the Prime Minister. But we will have an opportunity to speak and to extend further welcome. What I did want to say, sir, was particularly to say a fond farewell to our departing senators. They came in very interesting circumstances, not at the beginning. If you think of those who've been here since 2018, they learnt the rules. They debated on all matters. Both of them were very, very active members of the Senate. Dr. Brathwaite brought the wealth of his training and his international experience, and always reminded us of the importance of food and nutrition security, the centrality of agriculture to development, and issues of broad development and how we define it and how we deliver it to the people of Barbados. Senator Dr. Hines was, for me, more interesting because I disagreed with her so often. But I respected her positions and her perspective, and the fact that there was no nastiness to the way she presented her arguments. She presented them very robustly, very vigorously, defended her positions articulately, and held her ground and challenged you. And really, she demonstrated as an intellectual and a teacher, an academic, I should say, and a teacher. She challenged you to find and present alternative arguments. And she often went to the detail of an issue, annoyingly so sometimes. But for me, the other point that I would want to make here is that in seeing her go, I am also very happy that we welcome another female. The reality is that across the globe and across the Caribbean, even in international fora like the United Nations, where one would not expect it, women are only 10 to 20% of the membership. They are still largely unrepresented or underrepresented across the political spectrum at the global level. I heard the new Senator Watson this morning. It will be very interesting engaging with you, and I look forward to it. But I tell you that I watched your composure, I listened to your presentation, and I think that you will do the women of Barbados justice as you put your arguments forward in here, only to be defeated. And you know, I could not resist that. It was But that is the nature of the chamber, that since there will be two sides as opposed to independent presentations, I expect that there is going to be a divide of opinion, and the public then will be the judge of how the arguments and the issues are presented. So, sir, I close then in saying a warm thank you, a personal thank you, to the two senators who have left, who really were a credit to the country and who brought a level of depth, of greater depth to the chamber, and whom I should like to thank at the personal level and in my capacity as Deputy President, sir, for their service to this chamber and by extension to the country. I look forward to the service, the political service, the national service of the two new senators. I reflected just now, it only just struck me when they were speaking, sir, that January was 33 years that I entered politics, that I ran for the first time in the 1991 election. There are people in here who are close to that age if they've reached it yet. But I look back and having served in both chambers of this house, sir, I can say over the years that very often while there is large criticism of politicians and politics, that the reality is that by and large, Barbados has much to thank its politicians on both sides for, that this country has done well as a result of the policy decisions of the major political parties in this country, the broad policy decisions. So, sir, I close again, a goodbye, farewell, Godspeed, and welcome to the chamber. The day will come when the swords will be drawn, but it is not today.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, Senator Thompson. Senator Malalou.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually rise to ask a question about the adjournment, but before I do that, I would be remiss in not also extending my thanks and, to the outgoing senators who sat next to me. There were times when I had to lean towards my senator on my right, the Honorable Reverend, because there were some things being thrown to my left. So I tended to move to that direction. I wonder if, again, I might need to be careful in the position which I find myself, sir. But I do genuinely wish to thank the service for who have become, for both Dr. Christina Hines and Dr. Jelson Brathwaite, who have become friends through this. And they are exceptional Barbadians, and I am a better person for knowing them. And for my side, I want to say that. But I do rise, as I say, Mr. President, to ask a question with regards to the adjournment of our sitting today. And my question is that I understood the Leader of Government Business to say that we were adjourning the business on the order paper today. And I would like to ask whether or not that does mean, for my clarity, that the order paper will be unchanged when we sit here next week, or whether or not, with good procedure, the order paper would be issued anew. If I might have a response to that, I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Malalou. Two things. Both things are correct. The items that have not been considered today, there are five items for which have been read the first time and ready for second reading. Those will appear on the order paper, as will any other matters for which notice has been given subsequent to that day. But yes, you will be, this sitting will be summoned as usual. However, adjournment to a specific date is as good as a summons or a notice being sent. And both will be done, but all senators, all senators will take due note. And notwithstanding that you will get an email, that subsequent email will not be the only means by which the sitting has been done. If the sitting had been adjourned sine die, but then you will need to have formal notice convened. That will be the only notice convened. I hope that has helped you. But the order paper will start with those items that have not been dealt with today, and there may be stuff added which we may not necessarily debate next week. But the order paper is filled, and we do not always do all items on the order paper if we think insufficient time has been given. I trust that helps you, Senator Malalou.
Mr. President, I just want to be clear because, I am fairly new, so only 2 years. There was a bill there was a bill that was read for the first time today. I just want to understand, just for clarity, is it good procedure that when this is adjourned today, that the next time we meet, that bill can now be read a second time? I'm not asking for specificity. I just want to know if this was a continuation next week or if it's a new meeting. That's all I'm asking. And thank you, sir.
I don't understand. That's a very clear question you're asking now. This will be a new meeting. It's not a suspended sitting. It's not a suspended sitting. So, for the benefit, including those in the gallery, for example, in estimates debate, and we're debating for 3 days. At the end of the day, the question would be that the Honorable Senate be suspended until 10 a.m. tomorrow or whatever date. And there'll be a continuation. No new notice goes out, anything of the sort. At the end of the close of the business of a day, we always adjourn, but we can do two things. We can adjourn to a set date, or we can adjourn without setting a date. And in this case, we've set a date so that you can do your planning and you can plan not to have any other business next week, Wednesday. The matters that have been read the first time will appear on the order paper as for second reading. Whether or not they dealt with on that day will be obviously subject to what is happening and so on. But I trust that clarifies the matter for all. Senator Mr. Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief, Mr. President, as always. First, Mr. President, I'd like to welcome the 4 new colleagues, because I have not spoken since either Senator Blackman or Morris have been present. And I'd like to welcome also Senators Walters and Watson. I'm sure, sir, that they will add some new life and vigor to the Senate. I shall be watching. And listening. Mr. President, though, I am reminded of a lecturer that I had as a medical student called Nan Kishwani. He was a gentleman, and he was world famous for localizing something that I think only doctors would know about, something called the phrenic nerve nucleus. That's part of your spinal cord that drives your breathing. And I remember him because he said on his retirement, he was on a 1-year sabbatical in Jamaica. He said there are only 2 times when a man is allowed to cry. He was not referring to women. He said when a man is allowed to cry. He said, when a new baby is born and when you leave your friends behind, I therefore do not need to cry, because I am not the one leaving. But I am saddened by the absence of my 2 colleagues who added tremendous energy to the Senate, Mr. President. At a time, I think we really needed it. I will miss them. But I think that Senator Brathwaite's contribution, particularly, sir, his private member's bill, will have a lasting effect on this country. I thank you.
Senator Kevin Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is me rising to join my colleague, Senator Maynard. Mr. President, what difference a week makes? You know, and I understand that my apology was conveyed because I was in other place, and I heard the references to undeclared opposition. Well, the only place, no, it was reference to undeclared and declared opposition. I say the only place there must have been undeclared opposition would have to be the other place. Because certainly here, sir, we saw with the 2 independent senators who have now left us, contributions that were made in such differing fashions, but yet achieved the objective of debate. We sat here last week and Senator Hines brought out the response and had a debate go forth, and we got into skepticism and what it meant and perspectives. That is why we are here. We all enjoyed the consistent application of Senator Brathwaite. The only time we diverged, even though we are not one and the same, was when he proposed that every house that had land had to be dug up and plant agricultural produce in Barbados. That was the only time in which we had to say, well, I think you're going a bit far. But his contribution and consistent mantra that we need to beware of food security, I think is something that we ought to commend and to reiterate consistently. And sir, Senator Hines, with her often scathing, fearless, drawing emotive and evoking the asides, I think served a purpose. It served a purpose in a time when the country had no declared opposition. And finally, sir, before I get to welcoming our new colleagues, I must take the point to remind this chamber that Senator Rogers, when we had the debate on the constitutional amendment, made this concern one for the record, and we can go back and check it at our leisure. But here we are. Let us welcome our new colleagues. I will do it alphabetically so there could be no apparent bias. Firstly, Senator Walters, thank you for accepting the mantle, and we look forward to hearing your contribution. Senator Watson, I look forward to your continued enthusiastic presentations on behalf of those who you seek to speak for. Welcome, and let us continue the work of this honorable chamber. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Gavin Boyce. Senator Nichols.
Mr. President, I know that I am rising on the motion to adjourn the business of today, but I think it would be remiss of me if I were not to enter my own comments on the record to pay respect to our two outgoing senators and also to welcome the two new senators. But I thought, Mr. President, having heard Senator Watson and Senator Walters speak, that we should clarify what we all understand is our role here in the context of the ensuing debates that we will have, given the nature of our current order paper and things to come down in the pipeline. Certainly, I quite enjoyed the debate that we had with both Senator Dr. Bradford and Senator Dr. Hines, two different types of senators. One brought a specific laser focus, as was said, at the risk of sounding like a surfeit, to food security and agriculture. And I think that we will all do well to look at his own written contribution, which he gave to us on agricultural sustainability and his contribution to national development as part of our own preparations for the annual estimates debates, which will come in a couple of weeks. Mr. President, we did promise to have some formal debate on it, and I do hope that in the course of our busy schedule this year, we can commit to it, because with the aspect of the wars that we're seeing in the world today and the disruption in the international food supply chains, we are becoming increasingly aware of our own vulnerability when it comes to food security and being able to sustain our efforts locally and even at a regional level. And to that, I think we have a profound debt of gratitude to Senator Dr. Bradford for his contributions in this chamber. They were also erudite. I, like Senator Boyce, remembers his signal suggestion of digging up all your gardens and perhaps replacing some of the poinsettia and hibiscus and ficus and these things with food. And as I see the stern look from the Deputy President, I will not repeat what he said to us at the Christmas lunch about conserving water. But certainly his contributions were well respected. Senator Hines crossed swords and I crossed swords. And the truth is that I'm not sure, but we are friends. And some people get the impression that because you argue your matters or points in your own style, in your own way, and and you don't give an inch, that you are essentially mortal enemies. And I remember a very good friend of mine eulogizing his father, who once sat in this place, the late Sir Richard Haynes, indicating that there was a very important part of the political debate that has carried this country forward. And I want to place on the record, Mr. President, that on the occasion in 2018 and then in 2022, when the people of Barbados determined that the government should be voted into office with all of the seats, the Barbados Labour Party offered to amend the Constitution to give voice to the Democratic Labour Party as a minor or the opposition party with some parliamentary presence by way of having a place in the Senate. The first attempt was overtaken when Bishop Adderley crossed the floor and formed the opposition and constituted that opposition by his own party. On the second occasion, the government was rebuffed by the Democratic Labour Party as making such an offer. It is an issue that many people in the country have commented on, and certainly I, as Deputy Chairman of the Constitutional Reform Commission, have seen many a submission coming from members of the public to redress that imbalance in terms of constitutional change. And that is something that we have grappled with, and I only hope that when the final report comes out in a couple of months, that Barbadians will be happy with the suggestions that we have made in that regard. But certainly, the notion that the government has been carrying on in a way that invites you to question whether we still have a democracy, and the vocal criticism of the government of not being accommodative of alternate views, you just have to look at the many alternate views that are in existence. Nobody is troubling the people who are making these alternate views, and that shows the very vibrancy of the democratic spirit of Barbadians, to which Senators Watson and Walters will now add to that debate. I welcome both of them. I've known each of them, Mr. President, for a very long time. I will confess that I have worked with and continue to work with Senator Watson on legal matters, and we have shared many a passionate discussion. We have agreed and disagreed on several issues, and such is the nature of life. And I believe it is important to send out the signal that this is not while it is an engaging political battle, this is not a battle that exists on a personal level. And that if you were to see politicians or people engaged in politics speaking civilly or even smiling with each other, it is not being done to deceive the public. Because more often than not, I always remember Sir Louis Tull speaking to how Barbados is really divided, and that we must be careful when we engage persons on the other political side that we are paying homage to the elders who have gone before us. And I say all that to say, Mr. President, that we will have a different type of political debate going forward in this chamber and in the country, because we now have a formal parliamentary opposition. I have served in this chamber, Mr. President, when there was a formidable parliamentary opposition of two, one of whom later became the Prime Minister of Barbados. If memory serves me correctly, there are only two Prime Ministers who will have served longer than he, having left this chamber, Mr. President. We welcome the debate, we welcome the discussion, because at the end of the day, politics is a contest of ideas. And respect that we will listen to you, but we will defend our position when necessary. And we will also defend when we feel that political platitudes are being lobbed at us for the sake of grabbing headlines, because we have a tendency not to delve deep into things. And when we do delve deep into the details, we get the moniker of being too intellectual. We get the moniker of being too serious. We get the moniker of overthinking and overanalyzing things. That is necessary even now more so than ever within the context of the world that we live in. I want to encourage my new colleagues to come prepared for the debates, to follow the discussions not only in the other place, but also to follow the discussions that are going on far away from us. There are major elections that will happen in this world that will reshape the balance of the world and the future of the world that we know it. In the United States of America, in England, in South Africa, in Indonesia. The majority of the world's populations will be voting for governments in 2024 in a way that will reshape the future of this world, and the issues that are at stake impact us. And therefore, I'm not sounding that we need also to locate the context of our political debates beyond that of the local and domestic issues which confront many of the people, but we must make sure that we recognize that there is a link between what operates on the international sphere and in our own domestic climate. So, Mr. President, with those words, I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this adjournment. I congratulate the sterling service of our past senators, and I welcome our two new colleagues. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Nichols. Senator Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to everyone, both here and online. I've been here now 2 weeks in the Senate, now back in Barbados 5 weeks, having been in Geneva for the last 6 years. I think it necessary, given the moment, to thank the outgoing senators for their contribution, Dr. Hines and Dr. Bradford, and I also want to signal out, like many of you have done, Dr. Bradford's contribution, not just in the Senate, but I can tell you of his prowess known around the world. I remember when I was the ambassador to the FAO in Rome, his work as the former head of ICA still stands the test of time and is a significant reference point in the body of work that is agriculture around the world. And therefore, I think that him having graced these August chambers, and at this level, really is a testament to our country. And I want to place on record my gratitude to him as a fellow Barbadian, the contribution that he's made to this country and the body relative to agriculture, particularly in circumstances where we grapple with issues of food security. And as a country that has to import most of its food, he not only articulated a vision for Barbados, but for the region. And therefore, I think that we owe him a debt of gratitude. I also want to welcome the two new senators, Senator Watson, Senator Walters. And Senator Walters' life has a way of playing out, and I really want to welcome you. I'm only 2 weeks here prior to you, but it is very interesting, and I commend you for being here, because your entry here, I think, can play a significant role in our debates, particularly in circumstances where you are not part of the Cabinet of Shadows, but you now are part of the Shadow DLP. And being a part of the Shadow DLP, I think that you can really lend to that debate as we go forward. But more importantly, sir, I want to say that we really have to ensure that as we debate, the cut and thrust of politics does not cause us to lose sight of why we're here. Coming from where I sat only a few weeks ago, the next few years globally will present a significant number of challenges for small states around the world. And therefore, our debates must reflect not only the issues now, but how do we reposition Barbados to be a first world country that uses the talents that we have and also present the opportunities for the young people that exist now and those unborn in the future. So I just wanted to lend those few words this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Blackman. Senator Nurse.
I shall be brief, Mr. President, but I don't think I should let this opportunity pass to join in the chorus of placing on the record our appreciation for the work of both Senators Dr. Bradford and Dr. Hines, who would have been with us for a short period of time, from 2022, I believe, sometime in 2022, up until last week. But I think, Mr. President, this Senate has been much richer having those two senators with us. I believe Senator Hines has a bright future ahead. She's still a young person, relatively young person. And she has a very inquiring mind, which is one of the things I particularly liked about sitting and listening to her presentations. And it was not just accepting, but looking at things and bringing that other perspective to the debate, which in a lot of cases, some of us probably did not even consider. And I think that contribution, her contribution, though short, was going to have a lasting effect on the process and what we have been able to achieve in the Senate over those last 2 years. And I also want to record my appreciation, particularly to Dr. Brafitt as well. I know that I have, and even at a personal level, I've developed quite a good relationship with Dr. Brafitt over the time he has been in the Senate. And in fact, I think that will be a lasting friendship. And I really want to thank him for his contribution, particularly in his sphere, his professional sphere. And at a personal level, he has now got me interested in doing some hydroponics. So I am actually in the process of discussing with him how I can do a little system at home. So even at that level, the spin-off has been good. And I wish to thank both of them for their strong contributions during that short period of time. I also take the opportunity, Mr. President, to welcome our two new senators, Senator Watson and Senator Walters, the two W's. Senator Watson, of course, your reputation to some extent precedes you. I have personally come to appreciate what you have been doing over the last, I would say, again, maybe about 2 years or so, particularly in your involvement in the current rape cases and so on that have been going on. And I can say that, and I can say that, Senator Watson, you have done and you have served this country up to now with a great service. And I look forward, of course, to your continuing service in that regard. And of course, right here in the Senate, where I expect your contributions, particularly in areas like energy and regulations and so on, to be strong and robust. Senator Walters, I welcome you as well. I don't have any personal connections with you, but from the feedback and from the comments which I've been hearing from the general public, I expect that you will be a significant contributor to the debates here in the Senate. And so I am pleased to welcome you along with all the other senators, and we look forward to listening to your debate, and we expect great things from you. And with those few words, Mr. President, I am obliged.
Thank you very much, Senator Nurse. Senator Reverend Morris.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Like those who spoke before me, I wish to acknowledge and the contributions made by our departing senators, Senator Hines and Senator Brathwaite. It was only a short time that I was in here with them, but I've been following them for some time, and I've always been impressed by speeches and concepts and precepts, always delivered by Senator Brathwaite. And I'm sure that we will miss his contributions. But at the same time, I'm sure the country will continue to benefit from his knowledge and his experience. I also want to acknowledge Senator Hines, who was and is no stranger to me, having taught her for a few years at the University of Waterford, known as the Commonwealth School. And, and I heard Senator Nurse say that she has an inquiring mind. Sir, you now know where that influence has come from. As with Senator Boyce, you would know where these inquiring minds have come from. But I really do appreciate having spent the short while here with them, and I wish them all the best in their endeavors. At the same time, sir, let me also welcome Senator Watson and Senator Walters. I'm just 3 sessions your seniors. So I look forward to the robust debates. I've never met Senator, have we ever met? I don't think we've met personally, but I've followed him. But Senator Watson has sat at my feet while I pontificated from the pulpit. So I hope that I've had some impact on her and her faith, but I also recognize the work that she has done over the years. And if I may use a biblical phrase, now that you have done all that work, friend, come up higher. And so you're here. So I look forward to sharing these sessions with you, and I look forward to responding to you, and at times correcting you. But I look forward to this fellowship we'll have in this Senate. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Reverend Rogers. The question is that the Honorable Senate be now adjourned until Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 at 11 a.m. Will all honorable senators in favor please say aye? Aye. Those against please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This sitting is therefore adjourned until February 21st, 2024 at 11 a.m.